Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. If you are a fellow fan and follower of true crime content, be sure to take a moment and subscribe. It's time for another true crime deep dive video and I have another solved case today. This is case number 24, and for this case we will once again be talking about a psychopathic teenager who murdered his own parents at just 17 years old. As always, I will go ahead and throw up my disclaimer. I've covered cases like this before. This one is similar to case number 16, the Shrout family murders, and if you are interested in true crime cases like this, I will leave a link for case number 16 in the description as well. Cases like these truly astonish me. It's one thing to murder a complete stranger, but to murder your own family members, the people who love you, who protect you, who even gave you the gift of life, it's unfathomable to me. And yet it feels like it's way more common than murders that involve strangers. I don't know the exact statistics. If any of you happen to know true legitimate statistics, please leave a comment for this video. But we all know that whenever a murder happens, who are always questioned and or suspected first? The top three are the romantic partner, family members, and close friends for multiple reasons. But let's get started on this case. This is the murder of Blake and Mary Jo Hadley. As someone who has lived in Florida pretty much my entire life, I've read about a lot of cases that take place here, and I watch many true crime YouTubers and podcasters, and every single one of them make fun of how many horrendous crimes happen over here in Florida. It's really almost comical how much fucked up shit happens in this state. And even I, at this point, have to stereotypically say things like, yep, only in Florida. And that is exactly how I feel about this case. Let me start by talking about the two victims of this case. Blake Hadley was born on January 11th, 1957 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He grew up in Fort Lauderdale with two siblings, a brother and a sister. Blake had always been a very intellectual person, and he eventually attended classes at Florida State University. Blake was known to be very friendly to those around him. Most people who knew Blake considered him joyful and fun to be around. His future wife, born Mary Jo DiVittorio, was born on October 4th, 1963 in Braddock, Pennsylvania, and she also grew up alongside a brother and a sister. It was evident from a young age that Mary Jo was an extremely caring person. She was the type of person who was the first to comfort you if you were visibly crying or upset. Mary Jo loved helping those around her. This was something that she continued to carry as she became an adult. In the early 1980s, Mary Jo moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where she met the love of her life, Blake Hadley. After meeting each other, it was a wrap. They quickly began dating and then married in 1985. Shortly after getting married, Blake and Mary Jo relocated to Port St. Lucie, Florida for a couple of reasons. The main reason was that Blake's job as a plant operator at Florida Power and Light, a job he would go on to have for 30 years, was located in Port St. Lucie. And another major reason was Blake's parents also lived in Port St. Lucie. Blake and Mary Jo knew that they wanted to have children, so it was nice to have Blake's parents there to help them when that time came. Mary Jo began working as an elementary school teacher. She would also continue this career for over 20 years. Mary Jo was a beloved teacher. Her students adored her, the parents adored her. There are a lot of comments on Blake and Mary Jo's obituary with parents of Mary Jo's former students thanking her for being this amazing teacher that she was. She definitely reached a lot of children's hearts. I went to public school as a child, and I wish that I had had such committed teachers like Mary Jo, who actually cared about each and every one of her students and took the time to make sure that not only did they understand the lesson being taught, but she was also a shoulder to cry on whenever they were upset. She went out of her way to really get to know her students on a personal level. She was the teacher that kids always visited and confided in. It seems like she was everyone's favorite teacher. Once Blake and Mary Jo moved to Port St. Lucie, they built their family home and quickly started making plans to have a baby. Their first son, Ryan Hadley, was born in 1987. Blake and Mary Jo were over the moon about being parents. Ryan would later describe them as being awesome, caring, and very attentive. When Ryan was 6 years old, Blake and Mary Jo welcomed their second son in 1993, Tyler Hadley, who is now going to only be referred as TH for the remainder of the video. TH was born a couple of months premature. Mary Jo had ended up having a difficult pregnancy with him, and he faced a lot of difficulty when he was first born, spending a month in an incubator when he was born. Despite TH having these initial complications, he still had a relatively normal childhood. The Hadley family were very active members of the Port St. Lucie Catholic Church, As their sons grew up, Mary Jo and Blake continued their respective jobs. TH, as a child, was described by other family members as being loving, but overall withdrawn, and was beginning to show signs of various mental disorders, such as anxiety and depression. Blake and Mary Jo, of course, noticed these signs, and they immediately started taking TH to several different doctors for these various reasons. By 10 years old, TH was prescribed a few different medications. He had medication for acne, depression, and TH was on growth hormones for a thyroid condition. It's clear to me that Blake and Mary Jo continuously tried to help their youngest son. They understood that he was struggling mentally and physically, but no matter what they did to try to help TH, nothing worked. In fact, he only got worse as he grew older. By the time he was 13 years old, TH had established himself as a known troublemaker in his neighborhood. He began defacing public bathrooms and people's cars as a hobby. He broke his neighbors' windows, he would steal their Christmas lights, he would set fires in the woods, and watched as the entire area was engulfed in flames. TH was known to have this bad temper, and he would explode very easily if provoked. TH began self-medicating himself with drugs and alcohol as early as 12 years old. Port St. Lucie, Florida was an easy place to gain access to drugs and alcohol. For those who don't know, Port St. Lucie is considered to be a very boring city. There's not a lot in general to do in this area. Port St. Lucie was originally built as a sort of retirement community, but as more and more families arrived, this community was no longer filled with only seniors. Teenagers soon began passing the time indulging in drugs, alcohol, and throwing parties as the only source of entertainment. TH followed into the stereotypical footsteps of these teenagers. At 15, he started skipping school to smoke marijuana, and by 16, he was taking all sorts of pills to self-medicate himself. It is reported that TH took Xanax, Percocet, oxycodone, ecstasy, and DMT. It was at this point of TH's life where he always had to be on something. He was spiraling, and Blake and Mary Jo were incredibly worried about the path TH was heading. TH was also committing burglary at multiple neighbors' houses, stealing very petty things. As his behavior got worse and worse, Blake and Mary Jo tried everything they could think of to get their son back on the right path. They took him to psychologists multiple times. They enrolled him in an outpatient mental health and substance abuse program. He was given antidepressants, but nothing worked. In fact, things were getting worse because TH was starting to despise Blake and Mary Jo. He resented them and their efforts to change who he is. I don't think he understood how much Blake and Mary Jo loved him and that they only wanted to see him succeed and live a happy life. There are several reports that TH had been talking about murdering his parents allegedly as young as 10 years old. Whenever he was angry or frustrated with them, he would tell one of his friends how he wanted to murder them. Now, if that's really true, then that's crazy. I can understand being angry and saying something like that once or twice in the heat of the moment, but to say these things all the time for years is a big red flag. That's not normal behavior. On April 10th, 2011, TH was at a friend's house and a fight broke out. TH ended up being arrested and was charged with aggravated battery when he had just turned 17 years old. Even though he was still a minor, since TH already had a record at this point for burglary, the judge sentenced TH to spend 1 week at the Port St. Lucie County Jail, and then he was to spend an additional 2 weeks of house arrest under the supervision of his parents. After successfully completing this short sentence, TH immediately went right back to his old ways. He didn't even attempt to be a better person in society. It was at this point where Mary Jo had had enough. She reached her breaking point. She was no longer going to enable her son's bad habits or decisions. TH then came home completely wasted shortly after completing his house arrest. He came home late at night and crawled through his bedroom window, and Mary Jo caught him. Mary Jo and Blake decided that as punishment, they took away his phone and his car. They also decided that they would enroll TH in an inpatient mental health program this time, since when they enrolled him in the outpatient program previously, that didn't seem to work at all. When Mary Jo told TH about these plans, he was absolutely livid. He blatantly refused to go to this program, but his parents told him that he didn't have a choice and that he needed help. He didn't listen. TH continued to rebel and continued his consumption of alcohol and drugs. He had absolutely no intention of getting sober. After Mary Jo informed her son of the plans to have him go into an inpatient program, TH started to complain to several friends through text messages and Facebook messages about how he hated his mother and wanted to kill her. Here is a couple of examples of messages he would send to these friends. I'll read this one set of messages between TH and one of his friends named Isadora Gasho. TH sends, "Don't text me about drugs. What happened? My mom has it because I got arrested on Monday and she's flippin' shit. I just got out today. Oh shit. Fucking shit sucked. You bad, kid. Just kidding. It's a pirate's life for me. Okay, I'm done with all the nautical nonsense, Isadora Gasho. Smiley face. You're so silly. What are you doing? Nothing. Considering suicide. Why? Because I want to die, I guess. End of message. Of course, these are kids. They didn't take him seriously whenever he would say things like this. It was always, yep, that's just TH being TH. No one ever imagined that he actually meant these messages. TH would confide to his neighborhood best friend Michael Mandel how much he hated and resented Mary Jo for disciplining him so much. He frequently told Michael that he wanted to kill her. Michael, unfortunately, also shrugged these conversations off. He figured TH was just angry. He was well aware that TH struggled with his mental health and never for 1 second thought that his best friend for over a decade would ever actually hurt his parents. A couple of weeks before TH murdered Blake and Mary Jo, the Hadley family went on a vacation together. They were joined by several family members. According to these family members, TH was on his best behavior. They were actually surprised that he didn't lose his temper one time during this trip. But behind this facade, TH continued to message several friends how he wanted to murder his mother, Mary Jo. And still, these friends just laughed these messages off and believed that TH was just making a sick joke. If only anyone had taken these messages seriously. I'm not blaming any of these people for what TH did to Blake and Mary Jo. I would like to think, and I'm sure everyone would like to think, that if any of them felt like these messages had been serious, then they would have told someone. But no one did, and TH began planning to murder his own parents. On July 16th, 2011, TH would carry out what he was telling his friends in these messages. The older son, Ryan, had just moved out of the family home and moved to North Carolina for college. And with Ryan now gone, TH knew it was the perfect time to fulfill his dark plans. At 9:40 a.m., TH began messaging a friend named Matthew Noble. I'll read these messages. Did you do it? No, but I'm gonna. Bet? You really should now. Do it. Don't worry, I am. Then I'm having a party. I gotta stop here. Already, all I can say is these first set of messages are atrocious. We have a mentally ill and unstable person being cheered on to commit murder by his own friend. What the fuck is wrong with everyone? I just had to get that off my chest. Let's continue. At 11:25 a.m., he starts another message with a different friend named Antonio Ramirez. Sup, bruh? Chillin', what you doing tonight? Trying to have a party at my crib. Your parents ain't home? Nope. Well, they're leaving soon. End of message. Then at 1:15 p.m., TH posts a message on his Facebook profile's wall, which reads, quote, "Party at my crib tonight. Maybe." End quote. With this message being posted, many of his friends were still not 100% convinced that TH was being serious about this party that was supposedly happening that night. Most of his friends knew that TH had been in a lot of trouble with his parents recently and knew that they would never allow TH to throw a party at their house. Shortly after TH posted this message on his wall, Blake and Mary Jo came home from running their usual Saturday morning errands. They were completely oblivious to what their son was about to do to them. TH started setting up his plan to kill his parents. He first hid both of his parents' cell phones, that way neither one of them would be able to call for help, since the Hadley family did not have a landline phone. Then he locked the family's black Labrador retriever named Sophie in a closet. He feared that Sophie would harm him or would bark loud enough to alert neighbors' attention in effort to protect Blake and Mary Jo from him. After setting up his plan, TH then took 3 ecstasy pills and waited for the pills to take effect. He later claims he did this because he didn't believe he would have been able to go through with the plan if he had been sober. Once TH felt ready, he snuck quietly into the garage and picked up a claw hammer. Now with the weapon of his choice in his hands, he quietly entered the room where Mary Jo was working on her computer. TH just stood there with the claw hammer in his hand for what he claims to be for several minutes, just contemplating what he was about to do next. Then he lifts the hammer and strikes Mary Jo in the back of her head. She screamed as the hammer struck her, which caused Blake to run into the room to see what his wife was screaming about. As soon as Blake got to the room, he froze at what he was seeing. He saw his own son standing over his mother with the hammer still in his hand, and Mary Jo was on the floor bleeding from the wound that TH had just caused. According to TH, him and his father shared a look, and then TH ran towards Blake and then began striking him with the hammer. During the attack, Blake yelled out "why?" As his son continued to strike him with the hammer, TH responded by shouting back, quote, "Why the fuck not?" End quote. TH mercilessly used the back end of the hammer and continued to hit Blake and Mary Jo over and over again until he was sure that they were both dead. Medical examiner Linda O'Neill would later testify in court stating, quote, "She was alive during every single blow. Blake's injuries would have been painful and consistent with someone who was fighting for his life." End quote. Mary Jo had 36 areas of impact, and Blake had a minimum of 39 strikes. They were struck all over their bodies. What makes it even worse, in my opinion, is that they died knowing that it was their own son that was their attacker. I couldn't imagine the thoughts that had to be going through both their brains as their own child savagely killed them with a hammer. After TH knew that they were both dead, he wrapped towels around their heads and dragged their bodies into the master bedroom, and he spent the rest of the afternoon breaking and removing everything within the home that reminded him of his parents, and he threw all of the items in the master bedroom on top of his deceased parents' bodies. These items included furniture, appliances, homework from Mary Jo's students, pictures of the family, clothes, books, TVs, mirrors, and much more. TH cleaned up the bloodstains from within the house for approximately 3 hours. Despite this cleanup effort, there was still several bloodstains visible throughout the home. As soon as he was finished cleaning, he took his parents' credit cards and withdrew money from an ATM and purchased supplies for the party he so desperately wanted to throw as soon as his parents were forever out of the picture. At 8:15, TH posted another message on his Facebook wall that read, quote, "Party at my house, hit me up," end quote. One of his Facebook friends named Ashley Hayes replied back, "Whoa, what if your parents come home?" And TH responded back coldly, "They won't, trust me." After setting up the party, TH picked up a couple of friends, and as he drove them back to his house, he flaunted the cash he had withdrawn from the ATM. He was obviously proud of what he had accomplished. More guests arrived at the Hadley home for the party by 10 p.m. News of this party was spreading fast. TH wasn't exactly popular at school. He was known to be quiet, and most students thought he was a little bit weird because he was known to have these sudden random outbursts during class, such as mooing like a cow. But despite this, many teenagers continued to arrive for this party. TH would answer the door whenever someone arrived, and people noticed that he seemed anxious. He was rubbing his hands together, and people remember his pupils being very dilated, presumably due to the ecstasy he took earlier in the day. He also told people as they were arriving to not smoke in the house, as it was his parents' house. As the night dragged on, teens were drinking, playing beer pong, and many people started asking TH where his parents were, and each time he was asked by a different person, he would give a different answer. He told people they were out of town, on vacation, or he even told a couple of people that his parents didn't live there and that this was his house. By the peak of the night, there were over 60 people attending this party. At one point, one of the teens sitting on the couch stated that he smelled dead people. Of course, everyone around this kid just laughed and shrugged it off, but in hindsight, it was such a disturbing thing to say because Blake and Mary Jo Hadley's dead bodies were located just feet away in the master bedroom. While 2 dead bodies were rotting in just the other room, the party escalated into a true, stereotypical teen party. In addition to playing beer pong, people were taking turns playing songs off of YouTube. They were lighting cigarettes and cigars and extinguishing them on the carpet. They were breaking beer bottles, trashing the inside of the house, throwing beer cans out on the front yard, just creating a gigantic mess. As the party was getting louder and more uncontrollable, TH seemed to be getting more paranoid. He wanted the party to continue, but he wanted them to quiet down, and he no longer cared if people started smoking in the house or not. Just as long as no one called the cops, TH was okay with whatever the partygoers wanted to do. At around midnight, TH began hinting to a couple of people of what he had done. He told his friend named Mark Andrews that he killed someone, and Mark's response was that him killing someone was his own business, and not to tell him about that sort of thing because he did not need to know. know. He told another person at the party named Ricardo Acevedo, after thanking TH for having him over, TH told him he just wanted to do one more thing before he left. When Ricardo asked him where he was going, TH told him that he was going to kill himself. He then told him the reason why he was going to kill himself was because he did something very bad, and if he was caught, he would be in jail for a very long time. He then told his longtime neighbor, Kimberly Theben, that he was going to go away for 60 years, and when she asked why, he simply replied that she would find out tomorrow. At around 1 a.m., TH took his best friend, Michael Mandel, outside so they could speak privately. They took a brief walk up the block where TH confessed to him that he had killed his parents. Here's a clip of Michael briefly explaining what had happened after TH had confessed.
He told me if I look good enough, I can see signs. I looked on the floor, I could see signs of blood, and that's when I went around back and looked in his parents' bedroom.
After you saw this scene, what did you do?
I was in shock. I was sitting down. I didn't know what to do.
Was he worried about what to do with the bodies or anything like that?
No.
Did he act like he was concerned about getting in trouble?
No. Well, he was going to commit suicide once he got caught, but that failed.
Was he on any sort of drugs or anything?
He was on ecstasy. I think he just threw a party because he knew he was going away and he wanted to see his friends one last time. I feel like this kid that I've known all my life, I don't know him.
Clearly, Michael didn't believe TH at first, so TH told him to look around and he would see some signs. He pointed out to Michael that both of his parents' cars were in the driveway, so they haven't left the house. Michael looked around the house and noticed bloodstains in several locations in the home. Eventually, TH took Michael to the master bedroom. He unlocked the door, and when Michael opened it, he could see all of the items TH had piled into the room. And then he saw a glimpse of Blake Hadley's leg resting against the door underneath all the junk, and he quickly closed the door. TH then told his best friend everything that had happened and how he murdered Blake and Mary Jo Hadley. He explained every graphic detail, and he even went on to tell Michael that after he had finished cleaning the blood, he took a shower, and once out of the shower, he stared at his own reflection in the bathroom mirror for a while and laughed as he stared at himself. After TH gave Michael his full confession, Michael didn't haul ass and leave the party. He stayed with TH for a couple more hours, and they ended up taking selfies together. When he was later asked why he stayed and took photos with TH, Michael stated he did this because he knew it was going to be the last time he would ever see TH. As soon as Michael left the party, he anonymously contacted Crime Stoppers and reported his best friend for murder. At 4:40 a.m., TH made his final Facebook post that read, "Party at my house again, hit me up." But what TH didn't know was that the police were waiting right outside the house when he posted that message. When the police officers knocked on the door, by this point almost everyone who had been at the party had left. At first, TH refused to open the door, but after a few minutes, he did end up opening the door for the officers, where he was immediately restrained. The officers broke down the master bedroom door and quickly found the bodies of Blake and Mary Jo Hadley, and finally, TH was arrested for murder. Blake and Mary Jo's funeral was attended by nearly 1,000 guests. The people of Port St. Lucie were completely shocked once the news of the double murder was released to the public. Everyone had trouble understanding why TH had committed this evil act. TH's older brother Ryan, who was 23 years old at the time of the murders, probably had the hardest time understanding why this had happened. He visited his brother soon after he was arrested. He claimed that the only reason he did this was because it's what Blake and Mary Jo would have wanted. Ryan knew that they wouldn't have wanted him to abandon his baby brother, no matter what he had done. In prison, TH became Mr. Popular. He was granted many nicknames from his fellow inmates that stemmed from the murder weapon he had used to murder Blake and Mary Jo. He was called Hambo, or Hammer Boy. He even signed autographs to his fellow inmates, and as a sick joke, he would sign, "It's Hammer Time," and under this quote, he would sign his name as Hammer Boy. TH's trial began in 2014, and because TH had still been a minor when he committed the murders, he would not face the death penalty, even though the state of Florida highly recognizes the death penalty. I know the death penalty is a very controversial subject. Everyone has their own opinion about it. I, for one, fully support the death penalty for some cases, not all cases that involve murder, but premeditated murders, honestly, I'm almost always all for it. TH broke down a lot during the trial. He claimed to have massive amounts of remorse, but his entire family only had more questions. From what I got from researching, it seems that the family was split on how they felt was an appropriate punishment for TH. On Blake's side of the family, they fully supported a lifetime or death sentence. Ryan Hadley himself has stated that even though he loves his brother, he wants TH to serve the maximum sentence, which he is well aware that is life in prison without parole. But on Mary Jo's side of the family, they are a lot more forgiving and didn't want TH to face his entire life behind bars, and claim that they hope to see him walk out of prison free someday. Some family members supported TH and even testified for him, stating that the medications that TH had been prescribed, along with taking drugs and alcohol, caused his poor decision-making that day. And that's why Blake and Mary Jo were ultimately murdered. Despite the support, thankfully, in my opinion, TH was found guilty for 2 counts of murder at 20 years old and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. According to prosecutors for TH's case, the main focus was punishment and not rehabilitation. In 2016, TH's sentence was overturned because the judge stated that, quote, they did not consider the correct alternative to a life sentence, end quote. TH's case was reviewed, and then in 2018, the now 24-year-old TH was again sentenced to life in prison. But this time, he would be eligible for parole after serving 25 years in prison. They had it right the first time around, in my opinion. Don't come for me. Disturbingly, many of the teens that had attended the party that night would later express fascination and excitement once they had found out what had happened and that there were 2 dead bodies just in the other room. Don't ask me why they felt this excitement. I have no idea. It honestly just gives me a headache to think about how these people seem to think it's so cool to be able to say that they were at this fucked up party. It's not cool at all. And if you happen to think it is, then something's wrong with you. Sincerely, something is wrong with you. Since being in prison, TH had been working on himself. He has gotten his GED and is also trying to get back into his Catholic faith. He claims that he thinks about Blake and Mary Jo every single day and that he has constant guilt for what he had done to his parents. There is really no excuse for what TH had done to Blake and Mary Jo Hadley. Call it what you want, whether you believe it was mental illness or drugs that caused TH to make these arrangements, then carry out a heinous murder. He planned to kill Blake and Mary Jo. And for what? Because he was an angry teenager who didn't want to listen to his parents? They only wanted their son to be the best person he could be. They didn't want him to spend his life dependent on hard drugs or alcohol. They didn't want him to be a criminal or to struggle with his mental health. Blake and Mary Jo tried everything to get TH to go down the right path, but nothing was ever enough. And they died knowing that their baby boy was the person who ended their lives. But that is everything that I have on this case. If you enjoyed this case, please don't hesitate to give it a like and share on all social media platforms if you think it's worth sharing. I will be back next Thursday with a new video for True Crime News. But until then, bye guys.